is this truly a need, or is this a very, very strong want and desire? And let's talk about how we can get as close to that as possible, because now we can put a better frame of reference. If we're stuck in the need conversation, it becomes absolute. And it's really hard to change a perspective when it's, I need this versus I want this. Welcome back, everybody, to Life at 10 Tenths, where we inspire you to live at the pinnacle of your ability and purpose. As always, Mr. Garrett Fry is here with me. I'm Matt Pinelli. Thank you guys so much for joining us. If this is your first time, welcome. We are so excited you're here. Head over to our website, lifeat10tenths.com. We got something special for you there because we are building out the most amazing community in the universe. Like, this community, Garrett, is so on fire. I mean, we got, what do we have? We have live coaching. We have workshops, which we're calling the Success Lab. How awesome is that? We got accountability. We got referrals going on in there. We got it all, man. Yeah. Good morning to you.
And I'd say for anybody who's like, okay, one more thing to go check out, one more thing to go do, there is a complimentary side of it that you can go and check out and see. And what I put together in there is an actual community tour. So if you're that, kind of on that fence of like, is this really worth my time, worth my energy? Is this really where I want to be hanging out? You can actually go see what it all looks like in there before you jump in. And I think it's going to answer a lot of questions for you.
Yeah. And and if you guys are like, hey, I want to try it on, I want to see how it feels, just sign up. It's monthly. Like, it's not like you're stuck in there. You're going to want to be in there though, for the long haul, because it's going to be really awesome. Because as we add stuff in there, it stays.
Oh, the library. That is what I'm most excited about, Matt, is as this library of interviews and bonus episodes of the podcast starts growing out. For those of you coming in early members of this is why we're giving a special promotion for people that want to have an access to this legendary access where you pay once and you're done. That's it. You get it forever. We're doing a little special package up front because as we build this out, but there is going to be a point here when that library is going to be growing and growing and growing. And as you're somebody coming into this for the first time, you're not going to be coming into one special guest that we have recorded. There's probably going to be 50 in there, and that as we see this thing grow out, Matt, that's what I'm really excited to see.
Yeah, me too. Well, our first special guest for a workshop is coming up. I guess today. This is the 11th of July, I believe. We're speaking into the future. So coming up in a few weeks on the 24th is actually going to be our first incredible guest workshop. Success Lab, I should say. And so hop in there so that you can experience that. It's going to be incredible. But as always, we got a podcast for you too, right? And we got a great topic here, Garrett, that you brought up. This is all too common too. I feel like, we have talked about this on our prior podcast before. There's a new flavor to it though. So don't think that this is old news. This is brand new news for sure. And it's something that I think can be practiced too. I think this is something that should go into our practice as realtors, as we're managing listings, because this will help us help sellers see a little bit more clearly.
Well, when we're working with people, Matt, there's certain markets that you can get away with this, and we just saw a marketplace that you can get away with this. The marketplace that we're stepping into right now, this is gonna eat some people alive, and they need to get a handle of it, and they need to get control of it. But one of my least favorite things that I hear is when somebody's complaining to me about a listing that won't sell. That listing's sitting there on the marketplace, and all of a sudden they say, but my seller needs a certain amount to be able to make the next step work. The one that I just heard the other day was they're already under contract on a house, and they can't close unless they get a certain amount on this property that they have on the market right now. Part of me was like, don't buy things you can't buy. I'm sorry. Like, if you can't afford it, don't go buy it. Hold on a second here. Now I get it. There's lots of, Yes, but that's the beauty of the housing market is we have this way to kind of flow money through and have it switch.
The beauty of this housing market, we buy things we can't afford, and it's like totally fine.
Oh gosh, it's like, okay, you shouldn't have written a contract on that thinking that you have something over here that's worth a certain amount. It's like having a gold watch, being like, I'm going to trade it in and buy a car over here. And it's like, well, my watch isn't maybe worth as much, but I've already bought this car. I've got to offset I need a certain amount for this watch. You got to give it to me because I bought this car over here and I got to make it work. They don't care. And that's where this all came, Matt, as we started talking about this. I'm like, the buyer does not care what you need for whatever it is you're trying to sell. Never have, never will. I don't care if you're trying to sell donuts. If I'm trying to sell a really high end donut because I got to pay the rent and I'm going to do it at one donut, the buyer does not care.
No, they don't care. And as consumers, the sellers saying this, they also don't care on the other side, right? It's not like they're going into these other things. And some people are like, yeah, I've had these conversations with my seller, but they don't get it. And it's like, okay, well, first of all, we cannot necessarily change the opinions of other people. They have to do that for themselves. The question is how do we develop a conversation that can at least help them see the perspective so that it allows them to achieve a goal or to recognize that perhaps that goal they have may not be achievable with the current plan? Because I think that's where a lot of people get stuck, Garrett, is sellers will say, well, I need this. And if I don't get that, then I'm not selling. Okay, great. Well, so then let's talk about that. Like, this is the first place that I go. I was like, great, let's go down that path. Let's play out that entire scenario. You don't need it, or you need this, or you'll keep it. Great. 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, are you still satisfied with being in this home? Are you satisfied with this situation? And a lot of times it gets them going, well, I mean, no, 10, no, not 10 years. Like, oh, well, what can happen in 10 years? Let's talk about that. These conversations open up the opportunity for opportunity. And if we're not having those conversations, if we're just cutting it off with, oh, well, I'm going to tell you, seller, you can't get that. That's not enough for them. They'll be like, well, I don't believe you. I think we should try.
Yeah. And that when you can find the root of what's going on, there's a discomfort that's causing them to want to make this sell. There's a satisfaction of this new property out here that they are already envisioning what their life is going to look like with the view, with the pool in the backyard, with the kids riding in the cul-de-sac. Like, they have a picture in their mind of this is the new life that we have sitting right at our fingertips. And I've got to make this work over here. And one of the things that I used to always lean into is that I'm fine pricing your property at whatever we want to put it on the market at. Like, we can do that. The one stipulation is I have to be able to negotiate it. I have to be able to sit in front of the person that is buying that property. And when they make an offer, I need to be able to negotiate why this property is worth this amount. Here's all the data that I have. And I'm saying this is like part of our job is to collect every piece of data and every piece of information that's out there, put it in front of our seller and sit down and say, okay, let's look at where your property sits in this marketplace, how it shows up. And once we figure out all that data and they're sitting there, well, let's say all the data says this property is worth $400,000. And we've got the seller saying, yeah, but I want to price it at 6 because I need it. I need the extra 200,000. Like, we just needed to be able to make this work. It's fine. I hear what you want. Show me how we're going to negotiate this, because I can't negotiate it on they made a purchase, they overextended themselves, and hey, can you just help out my seller? Like, they're really in a bad position. New house is beautiful. Hey, you know what, buyer? Why don't you come over and look at the house that my actual clients purchased that they're waiting to close on? And you're going to fall in love with this thing. And by that, you're going to want to make this work for them. Do you imagine?
That would be hilarious. Like, come see this way better house that we're buying right now.
Yeah.
It's going to make you feel so much better about buying this house right here for much more money than you're
By the
willing to
way,
pay for
all
it.
that extra money that they're asking from you, you could actually buy that house. You know, when they fall out of contract on that home, maybe you should just buy that one if you're going to spend that much on this
Yeah.
property.
Yeah. If you don't pay for this one, then you should just go buy that one
Yeah.
because it's same
Why
as
are we
better.
even looking at this house right now?
Garrett, I was thinking like, why are these conversations difficult? And I think that they are because the mindset behind this reasoning, right? Of I need this, I deserve this, is shared, I think, with a lot of realtors who are engaged in that. They're also thinking, I need this, I deserve this commission, which we did a whole episode on that recently. And I think we have to break this pattern of I need, and really understand like, well, what does that really mean? Like, do you really need it or do you want it? And what are the parameters around that? Because is there a marketplace for this? And if there isn't, we need to have a conversation about it. I've been seeing this trend on, I guess it's Instagram or something, where some creators are saying, can you please just watch my videos for more than a minute because I need the revenue from social media to pay my rent and things like that, which I feel for people in a situation where they just feel like they're entitled to just people coming and basically performing so that they can make something, provide the value, receive the money. That's what happens. And when you're a seller of a home and when you're a listing agent, you're guiding the seller to help them showcase the value of that home. Because if the seller really needs that extra bit of money, then I would say, okay, great. What can we do to showcase the value of this home at that price so that it is easy for a buyer to buy, to make it easy for a consumer in this marketplace to make the decision, that's totally worth it. I'm willing to pay for that. And if we're just kind of going off of like, well, it's just a house, it's here, you know, because we can manipulate the price a little bit if there's some way we can bring more value to it.
Well, and this goes back to, we talk about as we show up, I think a lot of realtors, we want this for our clients. We want to help them get to that next stage. We like these people. We buy into their stories also. Like they did a better job of negotiating with us about why they need a certain money for their property to move on to the next thing, more so than we're doing a job of actually, trying to figure out what is the right price that this home should be at to begin with. We need to make sure that we are showing up as their trusted person that they're looking for information here. We can't be a yes man in this situation, because if you're a yes man, or you're going to let them down in a lot of ways, because all of a sudden they're going to be sitting there saying, Matt, you told me that we could do this. You told me that we could be able to make this work. We would have never got under contract on that other house and put ourselves in this position if you would have given us the information so we knew what we were supposed to do. We can easily back ourselves into a really bad corner. And it's a weird place, because we don't want to be backed in that corner, but we also have a hard time telling somebody that maybe this isn't the answer. Maybe we need to change what our vision is so that we can have something that we can be successful with here. And we allow them to go and do this. So I think it happens way early, where we are guiding them and helping them to figure out, okay, well, what are we trying to accomplish? Is this even in the ballpark? And then the next part is let's make sure we're doing this in a way that's going to be appealing to the buyers out here, because there's a lot of great buyers in this marketplace right now. And we've done episodes on this, that if you have a property that's sitting there and everybody's saying, oh, everything's price sensitive and things like that. Yeah, there is some of that going on out here. But every single agent I've talked to in this marketplace says, if it's priced right, if it's presented right, it's selling. There's a couple of little pockets of very high-end areas that I'm watching right now that are really sitting. And this is where I always say, if there's no buyers, there's no buyers showing up. And I say, not just to your property, in the price of this, where you talk to other real estate agents and you figure out what's going on. If they're like, it's dead, there's nothing, there's no showings, there's nothing happening out here. Okay, we might need to figure out a new game plan. But if there's buyers roaming around, which almost every market, every price range, there are a lot of buyers roaming around out there. we need to figure out how to put that property and position it correctly in front of them. That's the number one goal.
And I think as the listing agent too, if you're able to have these conversations, because at the end of the day, the sellers are going to make the decision that they want to make. And you get to decide whether you want to be on board with going on that path with them or not. Which it's okay if you decide, yeah, I'm going to go on this path of I've done it. Listen, I've done it, and it's actually worked out. But if you're very clear on the expectations, your conscious, your business conscious is clear, and the conversations are productive. The decisions may not be productive, but the conversations at least are productive. And at some point, the seller will make whatever realization they need to make, and they'll either take the property off the market or they will make the adjustment they need to make in order to make that property attractive for a buyer without worrying about what their quote need is. And this goes on to the other side of the conversation. Well, we don't need to sell, right? So there you have kind of the two extremes that involve the same conversation. I need X dollars out of this property and we don't need to sell. Literally can become the same conversation of, well, let's play that out then. Let's talk about what these scenarios look like for you.
That's what I've always found. Whenever you hear the I don't need to sell, that is where, like, for me, it's like, I got to ask more questions. I got to figure out, it's like, well, why are we even talking? Like, what is happening? Like, how did we end up here if all of a sudden you're telling me you don't need to sell?
Do you think that's going to attract a buyer? You think a buyer is going to be like, if you're like, hey, you guys want to come see my house? I don't really need to sell it, but I might. You want to come see it? Not really. I kind of want to buy a house that's actually for sale. So I'm gonna go check out your neighbors.
You have the realtors that are hanging on to these people that don't really need to sell, and I actually call BS on that. I actually think that if you put yourself into a position as a consumer where you pick up the phone and you call a real estate agent or you talk to one of your friends and say, hey, who's your realtor and who do you recommend? There's a level of pain going on behind the scenes that you are trying to solve. You're trying to fix something to get from one place to the next. It's like, I know everybody goes, oh, I'm going to go out and just like kick some tires today and go walk around. You know, the saying is to go walk around like on a used car lot. Nobody does that unless they're trying to solve something. They want something new. They want to change the vehicle that they're currently in right now. They want to dream about what maybe their next vehicle is because they're not happy with what they're currently sitting in right now. There's no way. I mean, I love cars. I love buying cars. I love being around cars. I will never just go walk on a used car lot for the fun of it, just to go walk around and have to tell the salespeople over and over and over again, I'm not interested. Please leave me alone. They're going to ask me, what are you doing here? Why are you even here? Because at the end of the day, if I am, I'm trying to solve something, trying to fix something in my head of something I need, something that's not right now. And that's these people that are out here. But if they don't have a clear vision of it for themselves and we're not helping them, it's very easy to say, I don't need to sell.
Yeah, that's why you walk the car lots on a Sunday. But let's take need out of it too. I feel like, as we're having this conversation, does anybody really need to buy or sell? Or do they have the desire and the want to buy or sell? I mean, you think about it, right? There's nothing we quote have to do in this world. Like, even if you're moving job, it's like, well, you don't have to buy a house in that new spot. You could commute by airplane. That would be very expensive and a very much pain in the butt. You could rent. You could live in a hotel. There's a lot of other options. Like, so when we get to need, it almost feels like people are saying there's no other option. I need this or I die. Right. And it's like, okay, well, let's back up and really talk about, is this truly a need or is this a very, very strong want and desire? And let's talk about how we can get as close to that as possible, because now we can put a better frame of reference. If we're stuck in the need conversation, it becomes absolute. And it's really hard to change a perspective when it's, I need this versus I want this. And now we can negotiate, because if I get close to that want, like if they need that extra $20,000, let's say on a listing, it's like, okay, well, so 20,000 or nothing. So if we got you 18, you'd be like, no. If we got you 15, 10, it would be absolute no. It's life or death. And most of the time we're like, well, I mean, given the circumstance, maybe that would work. Oh, well, what circumstance would that work? And we have these conversations, right? And this is assuming you have all the data, you've done all that stuff too, right?
That need to have to mentality and idea, I think, is a fun one to unpack with somebody, because as you're saying, is you don't need to, you don't have to. And I know there's a lot of listeners out there, Matt, going like, oh, I know situations where they know they really need to. And
Really
one
don't.
of my, or they really,
Bankruptcy and foreclosure is an option.
and that's the thing, is that the way that it was always delivered to me, I grew up in a household where the need to and the have to was like, I might as well have dropped an F bomb in the house. Like, it just was like, it wasn't an available word. We all know our house is like, don't say certain words. Need tos and have tos were not allowed in my household. And the reason for it is that the minute you say that, the right question to ask yourself is, am I willing to accept the consequences of not doing it or not having it happen? And if you're not willing to accept the consequences, that's where the motivation comes in, is that now I want to because I'm not willing to accept the consequences of not having that come to fruition. When it's a need to or a have to, we actually have a lot of, it's actually called coercive motivation. There's a difference of constructive motivation and coercive motivation. And coercive motivation will actually work against us. We will push back on it. It will actually push us in the wrong direction. We don't realize that that's what it's doing. But the minute that want to, Matt, as you're talking about it, choose to, the get to, the want to, all of a sudden, this is a whole different type of motivation, constructive motivation. And this is where we get creative. We try to figure out how are we going to do it. I've even seen people build more value into a house, as you were talking about just a little bit ago, where all of a sudden it's like, well, what could we do to raise the value on this house so that we can actually get more money? There's improvements you can do to a house that the cost going in is less than the cost you're going to receive from what a buyer will pay for it. A paint job on a house, when the paint's all peeling off, that is not we put a $10,000 paint job on the house, we get $10,000 in return when we go to sell this thing. You will get a far greater. Now, if the house paint's perfect, yeah, you're not going to receive the benefit out of this, but you start looking for the things of saying, what is the stuff that's hurting the value of this house? Can we put a little bit of money into it? Can we get more out of it? And this is where I think a really professional realtor isn't just sitting there looking objectively at the outside and just going like, yep, this is the house. They will come in and they will figure out and they will look at it and say, you know what? It would be worthwhile redoing the floors in here. I know you love your floors. I know these floors, these colors are not in anymore. They are actually going to polarize people coming in and looking at this house. It's going to make it look dated. Let's do new floors on this thing and I can raise the value of this house. We can get you what you want. I know it's counterintuitive because you're going to spend money right now, but it's going to get you to where you want to go. I would much rather have that conversation with somebody than let's try to prove to some buyer out here why it's worth something that maybe it's not.
Yeah. I mean, and if you open up the opportunity for this conversation, and you can even use a bit of mirroring here. If a seller says, Garrett, I need this much money out of my house, otherwise I'm not selling. Like, okay, so what I hear you saying is that you require a certain amount of funds in order to be able to move out of this house. And if you don't have that, you are definitely not moving and you're not signing a contract to sell this house. Am I hearing you correct? Right? Yes, that's exactly. Okay, great. Let's talk about that number and talk about how we can create that value so that we can showcase it and attract the right buyer. Would that be a path you'd like to explore? Oh, yeah, let's explore that path. Because when you think about it, like we have crazy ownership biases over our stuff. Definitely our home. I mean, how many times have you ever gone in to trade in a car and you're like, oh, this is going to be great. I'm going to get X amount of money for this car. You go in there and you're just like so deflated and disappointed.
But by the way, you never walk out going, they're giving me more than I thought. That doesn't happen.
Like it happened to me once. That was 2020 crazy car market. I was like,
it was
wait
a
a minute,
green
you're going to
Bronco,
give me
wasn't
what
it?
for this car?
It was a green, brand new showroom Bronco, wasn't it?
No, that and our sedan that we bought off lease and traded into. I paid like 27 off lease, sold it for 32.
All right,
like,
maybe I was lying to everybody. I'm sorry, because Matt's had it happen twice in the last 4 years.
It was all at the same time. Anyway, point being, we have these biases, and unless we explore it, we still think it's a possibility. Like, think back to Jim Carrey and Dumb and Dumber. It's like 1 in a million chance. So you're saying there's a chance, right? Let's explore that chance and what it means and what would go into that becoming a reality, because then we can have a complete picture. So we can go, okay, I know I said I needed this, but I may not be willing to do what's required to meet that need. And so I think I'm going to adjust my need, which really is them saying, I'm going to adjust my want, and I'm going to adjust my desire a little bit to match with what I really want, which is to move out of this house and move to the next one. And you know what? I'm not going to be able to put as much down on the next house, but I can handle that extra $30, $40 a month in payment, and we'll make it up over here, blah, blah, blah. And you start to help them see the picture. That's what we want to do.
Well, and I was, the scenario that came up that caused this episode to happen. Again, they have a house that is their dream home. They need to get a certain amount by selling this house. And, and it was funny. My question I asked was, is there anywhere to scrounge up money to make up the difference for the down payment that's needed to be able to buy this next property? Because you're not looking for cash for value, value for value. It's not even. We need to figure out what the down payment differences that we need to make up on this side of it. And that came down to, are there other places they can go to? I know it's not fun to ask family members for money, but it's funny is you probably have a better chance of getting that money from a family member or somebody you love who's saying, I'm willing to help you out, than trying to convince a buyer to buy over value of what this next property is going to be for them. So we have these options in our hands here. And we were talking a second here ago about building value. And I think I've shared this on a podcast episode in the past, not on this platform, but there was a home when I was growing up in a neighborhood where we lived and I only know this because I grew up in a family of real estate agents. So this story was told around my dinner table. House was on the market. They were trying to do a price reduction, big price reduction. So value of this home, they were going to do $100,000 price reduction on this property. And they didn't want to give up that money. And they're like, how can we do it? Or how can we be more effective about how we do this? Because I feel like we're just reducing the price and reducing the price, reducing the price. And they said, they had a meeting and they said, well, what kind of car does somebody who buys this type of property, what kind of car do they drive? And they said, well, I don't know. And Jaguar came to mind. So they literally, instead of doing the price reduction, went down to the Jaguar dealership and said, what we'd like to do is, instead of reducing this cost, we're going to take the funds there and we're going to buy a car. As of right now, we're not buying it. The deal with the Jaguar dealership was, will you let us put one of the models in the garage with a big bow on it that said, if you buy this house, we're going to give you this car. And all of a sudden it became a talking point. All of a sudden it was like this thing. Now, the funny part is, Matt, is it didn't sell the house. That car was not like somebody walked into the garage and was like, whoa. It was sold because the salesperson of the dealership was test driving somebody in one of those cars and said, you want to know how you can get this car for free? And the guy's like, you have my full attention, because he was like, it turned into this like bragging rights almost about like, I got my car for free. He ended up buying the house. That's what the salesperson drove him to the property. They went and he's like, here's the car, here's the house you got to buy. And the guy's like, this is worth the story. He's like, this fits with my world. I mean, obviously it was a unique situation that made that work, but I've always looked at that of like, I would rather build the value than try to justify, stuff that it has no foundation underneath it at all.
Well, and this goes down a whole nother path, which is amazing too, which is the value you can create from a marketing standpoint and from an actual standpoint too. I mean, gosh, you got a free car is a lot bigger than what you think. Like, you can think a lot bigger than just swapping the floors. All if the floor needs to be changed, change the floor, right? You can do some really pretty interesting things to draw attention to a property and to give it more buzz, because sometimes the value could just be like, hey, you know what? We need to figure out a way to get this property seen by more people who, like, it sounds like this is the type of house that could potentially be a quote impulse buy. It may not be one of those homes that people are like, yep, we got an expanding family, need to upgrade, and kind of that fits the bill. Let's go and get that house kind of thing. It's a lifestyle play. And if you can create a dream around a property and some buzz, like you can get some cool attention. That's what a cool story. Like, you know how you can get this car for free? You just got to go buy a house. That's it.
Well, and I've actually seen this pulled off in kind of more recent times where it's like the house has a movie room. And it's like, yeah, you can advertise it as it's got a media room downstairs in the basement. A whole nother thing when you actually outfit the media room or have here's a credit specifically so you can actually build out the media room the way you want. It's already set up. All you got to do is once you close on the house, go down, pick out your TV, pick out all the seating, pick out all the stuff. Like, you've got enough money to turn that media room into a movie night that your family will talk about forever. Like, I think like there's ways that we can get creative around this stuff rather than, just trying to justify an empty price. So, Matt,
Yeah. I have more ideas.
Again, I appreciate you kicking this topic around with me.
Yeah, we're going to have another podcast on something like this because I got ideas flowing now, which is always fun. So, but yeah, this is a great topic, man. I think so. Guys, get out, have the full conversations with your clients. When they bring up need, go down the path, have the full conversation, and really truly understand what's behind that word need.
Yeah. Well, to all of you that listen and you joined us today, I appreciate all of you, as always, for joining us. Matt and I, as we're growing this out, it's crazy starting a new podcast from the beginning again, because it's one of those like, oh, okay, here we go. We're getting this thing rolling. We're getting it going and keeping our mindsets in the right spot. But it's amazing to watch all of you that have come over. There's still a lot of people out there that used to listen to us. And because they don't know quite where to go, they haven't found it yet. I've had a lot of people that have reached out to me personally saying, hey, how do we find you? How do we listen? So if you know anybody in your office spaces, in your friend groups, pass it along, because I'm finding more often than not, they want to listen. They just don't know exactly where to go just yet because it's just not in their worlds. If you want to be part of an amazing community, I am watching this group grow out. The people that are in here are, a lot of them are friends, and I really like seeing them, come into this arena. But wealth of knowledge, I have found more often than not, as I've grown as an adult and as a professional, the knowledge around me is the most valuable thing I have. I know a lot of people come into the community to learn from Matt and myself. And the amount of learning that I get to have from all of you is absolutely incredible. And you're going to see this as this grows, because we're going to bring people in from the community that are going to end up on the podcast to teach all of you something. And this is the kind of the mechanism that I love to see come to life. So as we do this, I'm excited. Come and join the community if that's something you want to be a part of. There's going to be a lot of great information going in there. And then as you join and you stay with us for time, this library is going to build of all these great episodes, topics, interviews, and we're excited to have you with us. So check it out, Life at 10 Tenths, and would love to have you. Matt, anything else?
That's it, man. Thanks everybody for joining us. We appreciate you a whole lot.
Thanks, everyone.